Today we greet you from Agroindustrial the Americas in the municipality of La Dorada, Caldas. And we want to make a practical approach today. Show you the whole process of selection of our cattle on the genetic selection of our donors, and how all this selection work leads to the process of crossing with zebu cattle, to get a final product which are males of 26 to 27 months of average of 520 kilos. In previous programs, we have talked about how we handle a combination of the two lines of the beef master, the original line which is the Lassiter line, which is a line that shows great rusticity, that shows great fertility, that combines very well with all the adverse effects that we have in the low tropic, which is where most of the breeds in the country are accentuated. And we have been crossing and selecting it with the BBU line, which is the line of the track in the USA. What we have been looking for, or how the Americas can be defined at the level of beef master, is defined as balance. The balance between specimens of very good conformation, good phenotype, good adaptation, and above all great productivity. We have been looking for our specimens to adapt to any weather conditions, to any thermal floor, and above all to continue expressing not only the fertility, but above all the productivity that is natural to the breed. It has been a somewhat complex task because we have been evaluating our animals, selecting our donors according to type and condition. In type we have been looking for specimens with good conformation in terms of their conformation, strong pasterns, good heels, good musculature, good strength, at the level of the back, and above all we have tried to accommodate a little higher the foreskin, looking for more efficient bulls that do not have problems when working with Brahman cows. In the females, we have done the work of making a linear evaluation where we have qualified about 18 characteristics, whereas what is the facial characterization of the female, musculature. The musculature we are evaluating at the level of the shoulder, posterior musculature, how the musculature descends at the level of the leg and the amplitude of the musculature. We have fixed much strength at the level of the back and amplitude of the back. Above all we have made much emphasis, as I was saying, at the level of the posterior train, good pasterns, good hocks, and above all very good displacement. During the last 8 years we have been doing this linear evaluation, and we have been selecting which are the females that serve both for the stable and those that serve as donors. In this process that has been long we have begun to identify which are the females that best, or which best characteristics have transmitted us with different bulls from the USA that we have been doing. We have tried to make presence in the best fairs in the USA of Master and Mexico, seeing the best genetics, and we have brought those bulls to Colombia to work on our donors. After we make the marriage, which we do according to the genetics and the biotype we do our work with embryos, and we make a first genetic evaluation when the embryos are about 4 months old. When they are 4 months old we look at weight, we look at development, and we start to see phenotypic characteristics of what we are looking for. Primarily what we start to see is condition, in the foreskin males, in the arm, navel, and above all a strong condition at the level of the pasterns. When the specimens are 8 months or 9 months old, when they are already weaned, we make an individual linear evaluation of each one of the specimens. In this linear evaluation we look at the father, mother, what genetics they had, and we start to see which were the dominant characteristics that the donor transmitted to the specimens. Not all the work we have done on embryos has linked us to the bull, so we have had to discard animals, the females. Many of these females go to the paddock to work with pure masters bulls, to follow the pure nucleus. The outstanding or normal outstanding females, the females that do not fill. The characteristics are females that go to auction and the males that do not meet the characteristics that we are looking for in our breeding stock. Those males also go to fattening and we are slaughtering them. Here we do not make preferences for the simple fact that it is an embryo, because we have been precisely collecting data of which can be the best crosses that we should have in the breed, and that selection today has been leading us and has shown us the biotype of animal that we should have, and that works for us. At this moment that we are starting to do, we used to make global matings. We were looking for a single bull for 6 or 7 donors, and based on that we made the selection. Now with the information we have from the 8 years and seeing which is the genetic dominance we have in our act, we have already started to make individual matings. Individual matings for each cow, and especially individual matings to make IATF programs in the purebred cattle, which is going to cut even more the margin of error, and we are going to try to focus on what I always told you has been the pillar of this cattle raising, which has been the balance. Our final goal is not the track. Our program has always been to have productive and functional animals. That is why our specimens, our embryos, are with the mother, with the recipient until 8 months in the paddock. After the 8 months we make the selection. We take those animals that are outstanding in type, conformation and weight gain, and those are the ones that enter the barn. In conformation and weight gain, and those are the animals that enter the stable. Many times they do not reach the maximum of the competition, but they form very functional animals, and I believe that with the animal that you see next to me we begin to see the result of 8 years of selection, of hard work, and above all of genetic improvement, which is what we are doing here in the Americas. In the case of the females, we are not only looking at muscle formation, but also at their capacity to wean a good specimen. I come back and say that we are looking for animals with good maternal ability to have good offspring and therefore have good animals for fattening. At last year's Agro Expo we had a good presentation. He was the reserve national grand champion. This year we are preparing for the fairs of Bucaramanga and Monteria, and as I mentioned, we have been making a selection of the best we have in the farm. Many of the bulls that are here have brothers and sisters in the paddocks. They are in a 100% paddock production system, and we have tried to choose what phenotypically gives us the best performance. We are going crazy with the whole stable, so to speak, to see what we can hit. But we have made a very responsible previous selection, all in favor that the person who buys a bull or a heifer from us gets a reality, not a made-up animal, that has been eating concentrate since a month or 2 months of life and that is going to have reproductive problems in the future. We do 3 fertility tests on all our bulls during the year to make sure they are doing well, We see their behavior, and when we pension the fair bulls, this is a bull that only has this year left, it is a bull that we collect, his semen goes to IATF programs and he is already going to graze the pasture with white cattle. As I was saying, none of this work would have any repercussion if we are not able to take it to the commercial level. What we are doing, perhaps we are one of the largest beef master cattle ranches with a pure nucleus of commercial pasture producing males for fattening bulls, and we are doing a work of absorption where the F1 females are working with beef master, and we have already been obtaining outstanding results. To talk about results of 250 to 260 kilos in 8 months under normal grazing conditions for weaning is outstanding under the conditions we have in the country, and that is what we are looking for. To have animals that adapt and produce, and above all that are a reality for beef master producers. Within the selection process that I mentioned, although the bull is very important, we have been looking for dominant females in our herd. As I mentioned, we have always tried to be present at international beef master events, and we have looked for outstanding beef master herds to acquire animals, that is a female. Imported 3 years ago from the USA from Frenzel's Cattle Ranch. Frenzel handles the original Lassiter lines. As I mentioned, very adaptable animals, with very good hardiness and above all good weight gains and fertility. Primarily what we do, and I was telling you, in the selection of females, when we evaluate the female, we look at 1, phenotype, facial characterization, that it is a female, that it looks like a female, in the neck, that it has good strength in the shoulders, without being abrupt in the chest, that it has a strong middle third, as you can see in this female. With this female we have already used several bulls in embryo work, and we have begun to identify a female that is very dominant in her middle third characteristic, with good conformation and above all good displacement. When one defines or is asked as a technician which is the best breed, I always come to the conclusion that the best breed is the one that does not give you any problems. It is that type of cattle that arrives at the farm, that adapts, that is not suffering from demo-parasite problems, that in summer month conditions maintains its weight very well, that comes winter and begins to eat well, shoot weight gains, that gives me 1 calving a year. That gives me animals of good conformation and above. All that shows me the functionality that the beef master must have. For our Brahman cross-breeding program we have made a selection, perhaps not so individual in our 23 Brahmans, but we have made a selection by weight gain and fertility that has been focused on what? Weight at weaning and pregnancy of the female. We focused first on starting to select females in their weight at weaning, which was done. At weaning we took the average and the animals that were below the average and the weaned animals that were below the average. If there was no sanitary problem with the female, we automatically removed that female. And with the passing of the years and with the selection, now we focus on the fact that the female must have a very good weight at weaning and be pregnant at weaning. What is happening? All this is focused on selection. Selection has to be defined in productivity. By doing that with these Brahman sires that we have obtained, that the bulls that we have produced with imported cows from the USA, with cows made by us, those bulls are going to sire, and those are the bulls that are weaning calves of 250 and 260 kilos today. That is where the focus is. It is not simply to go and buy a Brahman herd and start crossing, because the breed is very good for crossing, but it is the management and the sacrifice that the cattleman makes to make a selection so as not to have so many animals but to have many kilos at the end of the year, which are the ones that are represented in the sales, to have many kilos in a very short period of time. Unlike many breeds, it is a breed that we have had at an altitude of 2,000 meters, and it has behaved very well. We have had it at sea level without problems, and at this moment we have it in the Magdalena Medio, where the temperatures and humidity is very high, and it is a breed that has responded very well. So I believe that the virtues of the breed are in that productivity, and this is where we have to mention it especially to the cattlemen, because we as technicians give a guide or some parameters to follow during the selection process, but without the support of the cattleman it would be impossible to make this selection, because I mentioned, to discard an animal, at some point to have to slaughter a bull. I mentioned that discarding an animal, at some point having to sacrifice a bull that did not give us a fertility test, that had a problem, that did not respond to a treatment, or what we do with the embryos when they do not meet the characteristics of throwing some to the pasture 100% and others to discard is not an easy relationship. What happens? 3 to 4 years ago it was very hard to do this whole process. Today when you start to see that the results of all this selection are reflected in the weight at weaning, today, when you start to see that the results of all this selection are reflected in the weight at weaning, having a 250 kilos weaned calf that could be costing me, if you want to sell it, if I wanted to sell it, they would be paying us easily between 2.5 or 3 million pesos for the quality of the specimen, and seeing that our fattening process, because fortunately we can close the cycle, we have breeding, raising, and fattening, we see specimens of 26 months of 520 kilos, that is where you start to see the profitability of crossbreeding. At this moment the issue has become a little bit, it is the situation, that there are no cattle, that the price is high. But it is a breed that before this situation was showing us very good yields. Because the real utility of the breed is seen in less fattening time and higher weight of the animals. That is fundamental. A very important thing is the characteristic of the breed, which allows them to gain more weight, not to be stressed so much, and this is being transmitted in each of the bulls we select for pastures. Our genetics are nowadays in the eastern part of the country, in the eastern plains, in Caqueta, in Putumayo, and the truth is that it is pleasant to listen to the cattlemen when they call you to tell you that the animals are working and that we sold them a reality, that we did not sell them a track model, but that we sold them an animal that is functional to fight with the environment, to gain weight, to give 1 calf per year, and above all to give a lot of profitability. For many programs we have been talking about the original lines, the Lassiter lines that came out of the crossbreeding of the Hereford, Shorthorn and the Brahman, and of what is the line lived the US line, and that type of lines exist not only in the Beatmaster but also it is also marked a lot in the milk breeds. In low milk we have the type animals and we have the production animals. The type animals, or the BBU line, is an animal that is very track. It is the animal that when you see it standing on its side has a nice head, strong, wide middle third, an animal that moves very well. They are not the most muscular animals, they have a good balance in the musculature. A musculature that descends very well, but they are not the most balanced animals. Which happened to us with the BBU lines that we manage, they were not giving us the yields we were expecting in the paddock. We used them and we continue to use them, but they did not meet our expectations of what we were looking for. With the Lassiter line you have an animal that suddenly is not so pretty to the eye. It is an animal that gains good weight, they are very long animals. Or they are a little thinner with a lot of muscle, but it is an animal that does not show off much in the ring, but it showed us functionality and weight gain. Instead of focusing on which of the two, what we did was to look for the balance between the two, so we looked for our BBU cows with Lassiter bulls. Our BBU bulls with Lassiter cows, and we started to generate, and I believe that today we can talk about Beefmaster of the Americas. I believe that today we can stop an animal from Las Americas in any ranch in the USA and it will be an outstanding animal, because it has the best of the two American lines. That is the selection we have been making. We have not been biased towards one, but we defined many years ago when we started the project, we defined what biotype and what animal prototype we wanted, and I believe that as a technician you should feel lucky when you get the farmer to support you and follow the same line, and you start to see the result of seeing very homogeneous animals. Very similar when you see from the youngest to the oldest, you see the projection from the youngest to the oldest. In females as well as in males, and I believe that is when you can proudly say that you are a breeder of a breed, and I believe that here in Las Americas we are breeders of beef masters, and it may sound bold, but we can be one of the best breeders of masters in the country at this moment.